Hey everybody, it's Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and I grew up in the wonder years of the gray box Nintendo. The original Nintendo Entertainment System came out when I was in elementary school. I wasn't allowed to get that. I mean, settle down. But my friends did. Two of my friends had Nintendos, and I'd go over there and we'd just hang out, play Nintendo all the time. And it was the Wild West back then, sister. There's no rules for games yet. Nobody knew what to expect. Anything could happen. We hadn't tapped into imagination in this genre yet. And so you didn't know what was going to go on. But one thing you did kind of know was that if you beat an enemy, if you killed one of the bad guys in the game, they stayed dead. You know, you've listened to this for a while. You can see where this is going. But one time, I'm playing this game where you go and fight like vampires and stuff, monsters and Frankenstein, Medusa, things like that. And I'm playing through this level, right? And I got this guy, and he's got this whip. And I see this red skeleton come up at me. I'm like, I know what to do. When you see a monster, you hit it with your thing, and then it dies. And so I whacked it with my whip, and it made the dying sound and the dying animation. And I was like, okay, that's predictable. That's what I expect to happen. And then I just go to walk past the skeleton pile of bones, and what do I get? I get that weird little clinky sound that Jeff Foote made a while back on this podcast, that xylophone up bones reassembling sound. The thing comes back to life, and it hits me, and now I'm the one who's dead. What the heck? It melted my brain when the dead thing didn't stay dead. But then right after that, I thought to myself, it's a video game, so, you know, like whatever, just mental note, those red skeletons, they come back to life. Here, though, in Matthew 28, we're getting a story about somebody coming back to life, and it's not held out as a video game. It's held out as a thing that actually happened. And the author of this book, Matthew, has gone to all kinds of lengths to spell out that there were witnesses and to give us the pertinent physical details and timelines and facts so that we can look at it and be like, okay, yeah, there's a lot going on there, and I might not know the exact order of everything that happened, but I have enough from Matthew to say, you expect me to believe that he actually came back to life? Dang. And if he did, well, then that would have more significant implications than the red skeleton coming back to life in that video game. Matthew 28, verse 1. After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. We've talked about this a bunch. We've speculated that they were keeping an eye on the tomb. Of course, if you go and look at the other gospel accounts, which we're going to do a little bit later on to kind of compare and reconcile the details as each of them present it, you get a sense that they're still involved in what is maybe even a multi-day process of preparing or caring for the body or caring for the tomb. More on that another time. But whatever the case, they got eyes on it and they're paying attention. And so here they are showing up. I think they've done the mental math in their head. And like, okay, 2 days ago, it was Friday. Yesterday, it was Saturday. And Sunday comes afterwards. And so they're going to be there. It's 3 days. And so I'm guessing that there was some hesitant hope and expectation here as well, but they couldn't expect what they see next is just that you don't have categories for this kind of thing. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it, like we talked about yesterday. This has some of the overtones of the transfiguration and a little glimpse of the glory of heaven and the realized, visualized kingdom of God. But also, this gives us another bookend moment, right? I mean, an announcement of an angel happens on the front end of Jesus' life. And now here another announcement and proclamation from an angel is happening on the back end of Jesus' life. Those kind of rhythms are all over the Bible, and I like to notice them. So then we get the call back to chapter 26. There's an earthquake, and just like right after Jesus died on the cross, there's an earthquake, tombs open up, and people come back to life and come out of them. And surprise, that's what's going to happen here. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. Okay, a little bit more dramatic response than mine to the first time I encountered the reanimating red skeleton. Things aren't supposed to come back to life. They're supposed to stay dead. But I'm going to give these guys a pass because, again, like this is happening in meat space with real life people. But in case you're not already getting what's going on here, and if you think about what I just read, it's possible that you could get to this point and be like, okay, we'll spell it out. But what exactly is going on here? Well, if there's any question about it, if the original audience or somebody who's never heard any of this is reading it for the first time is kind of holding their breath, no more breath holding after verse 5, because the angel tells them how it is. The angel said to the women, here it is. Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He's risen, just as he said. I mean, it all comes down to this, right? You put together an entire season playing hockey, and it all comes down to a shootout in the last game of the year as to whether or not you're going to make the playoffs, or overtime in Game 7 of the Cup Finals, or you go to the line with basically no time left on the clock, Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and if you sink both free throws, you're going to be world champions. It just really comes down to that prove-it moment, right? Is it going to happen, or is it not? And now what everybody's been holding their breath about, well, it happens. And it's not like some guy like Randy or Dale was there, and Dale was like, oh, hey, what's up, y'all? He came back to life. No, it's an angel, and he's glowing, and he has superhuman strength, and he literally broke the seal that is demonstrative of the world kingdom authority set to maximum. The government, that entity which has the most power, and even the good ones effectively operate as a rival or a cheap substitute for the eternal king and the eternal kingdom. And so maximum human power and force that could ever be mustered in the history of humankind up till that point would be the authority of Rome, with an emperor who holds himself out as being a deity himself. And it's broken. And in fact, a whole lot of rules that, in fact, theoretically can't be violated in the same way that a clinky skeleton, when you hit it, it's supposed to stay dead in video games, but occasionally doesn't. A whole lot of rules are getting violated here. Rule number 1, we just talked about. The rule that the government, the emperor, the empire is the most powerful thing that humanity can muster. Sure, we have revolutions from time to time, but it's just to get rid of one government and make another one. No, this is a renunciation, a repudiation of the strength of force of the world kingdom in its most powerful final evolution form. Another seemingly undefeatable thing that has been defeated in what has occurred here just before the angel says these words and spells it out is the power of death. That seal doesn't just represent Rome. That seal represents that when you're dead, you stay dead. And that's it. And there is nothing after that. And somebody might look at that and say, well, there's not a lot of implications here. You live and then you die, and that's okay. But no, it informs everything, because everybody knows death is a thing. Everybody knows it's coming. And also everybody knows that if there was something that happened after this life, that would change what you do in this life. And that seemingly unbreakable seal that divides life from death here is broken. Life wins. And then the third thing that seems undefeatable that is defeated when that seal, placed there by the Romans at the behest of the religious leadership, is broken, is the divide between God and man. God in his infinitude and perfection is just other. He's different from humankind. Even if we acknowledge that people are made in the image of God, still the sheer stack of limitations on humanity is such a different proposition than the absolute lack of limitations on God. How do you even make a relationship like that work? I mean, just the physics of it don't make any sense. The logic, the philosophy of it, before you even get into the goodness versus the corruptness of all of it. And somehow here, that seal is broken as well, as Jesus goes between the infinite, perfect, flawless God, and in defeating death formalizes this new family of faith wherein a whole bunch of people who used to be enemies and outsiders suddenly become sons and daughters of God, sons and daughters of the great King. Everything just changed. We've been sensing that was what was happening here for the last 4 verses, but now someone who is glowing and can move giant unmovable stones and appeared out of nowhere and seems to know things normal people wouldn't know, is saying, hey, if you can hear me talking right now and you can see how I am and what's going on here, then that's probably all the more reason you can trust me when I say this Jesus who you're looking for who was crucified. Yeah, not dead anymore. Just like he said. I love this part. Final thought, going all the way back to that video game I played when I was a kid. The next time I walked up, I was like, hey, that's another one of them red skeletons. I changed my behavior because there are implications to the reality that those red skeletons come back to life. And likewise, what we're going to see tomorrow is that this isn't just an announcement that the angel's making here, where he's like, well, he came back to life. Crazy, right? Immediately there are implications, and there's stuff that it just makes sense for the women he told this to go and do in light of this reality. And I'm looking forward to talking about that with you mañana. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.